Alright, coloreds, we're back in class. Grab your textbooks, nigga. I know none of y'all niggas pay attention in school, so somebody gotta teach you dumbass niggas some shit. We got how ancient humans survived the most dangerous night, or whatever the fuck. See, fuck this shit. This gotta be the shit about the asteroids and all that, right? That's what I'd like to think. Hold on, hold on. We got ammunition. No, we all good. Alright.
Window right now. Whatever you see sunlight hitting a sidewalk, look outside your window right now. Whatever you see sunlight hitting a sidewalk, a tree casting a shadow, a blue sky, all of that exists because a thin layer of gas, about 25 kilometers above your head, is filtering the radiation that would otherwise sterilize the surface of the Earth. You never think about it. Nobody does.
That's the ozone
But
layer,
74
right? You gotta be talking. That's the ozone layer you're talking about, right?
About 25 kilometers above your head is filtering the radiation that would otherwise sterilize the surface of the Earth. You never think about it. Nobody does. But 74,000 years ago, that layer nearly vanished, and your
What?
ancestors were standing under the open
Did that nigga just say your ancestors?
sky. That layer nearly vanished, and your ancestors were standing under the open sky. When it happened, the island of Sumatra in Indonesia sits on top of one of the most violent geological systems on the planet. Beneath the surface, the Indo-Australian tectonic plate grinds under the Eurasian plate at a rate of 56 millimeters per year. Pressure builds. Magma collects, and 74,000 years ago, that pressure released in the largest volcanic eruption of the past 28 million years.
Whoa, was that the super volcano? Yo, I remember they made a movie about that shit. If y'all niggas ain't seen that shit, y'all niggas need to go watch that shit. That shit was crazy, and it's wild that that could really happen at any given point in time. Like, the whole fucking world damn near. Wait, I know it was all of the United States, and I'm pretty sure it was some neighboring countries. I don't know if that shit reached everywhere, though. But, like, a lot of that shit was covered in motherfucking just pure ash, nigga. Like, you could be goddamn flying up above this shit and just see it pure covered in ash. That shit is freaky as fuck.
The Toba supervolcano didn't just erupt, it detonated. The explosion ejected 2,800 cubic kilometers of rock and ash into the atmosphere. To put that in perspective, the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, the one that flattened 600 square kilometers of forest, released about 1 cubic kilometer. Toba released nearly 3,000 times more.
Hold on. What, nigga?
Helens, the one that flattened 600 square kilometers of forest.
So this shit flattened. Mount St. Helens would flatten 600 kilometers of forest. Okay, now what did the other one do?
Released about 1 cubic kilometer. Toba released nearly 3,000 times more. The
3,000. Yeah, pack it up, bro. Pack it up.
caldera left behind is still visible from space. It filled with water and became Lake Toba, stretching 100 kilometers long and 30 kilometers wide across the northern Sumatran highlands. Pyroclastic flows, walls of superheated gas and rock, moving faster than any vehicle on Earth, buried 20,000 square kilometers around the eruption site. Ash rained across Southeast Asia, across the Indian Ocean, across the entire Indian subcontinent. In parts of central India, that ash settled in layers up to 6 meters deep. Across broader South Asia, a blanket of volcanic debris, 15 centimeters thick, covered the landscape. Plants suffocated, rivers clogged, the sky turned gray, but the ash was only the beginning. Billions of tons of sulfur dioxide launched into the stratosphere, and that gas did something far worse than block sunlight. It triggered a volcanic winter. Global temperatures dropped 3 to 5 degrees.
How the fuck? How does that work? How the fuck does sulfur trigger winter, nigga? Like explain.
Sulfur dioxide launched into the stratosphere, and that gas did something far worse than block sunlight. It triggered a volcanic winter. Global temperatures dropped 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. In higher latitudes, regional cooling reached 15 degrees. The volcanic winter lasted 6 to 10 years. After that, a prolonged cooling period stretched.
Oh shit, my fault, chat. My fault. God damn it, we just fucked up. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Cooling period stretched across the next 1,000 years. To understand what that actually means, consider Mount Tambora. In 1815, Tambora erupted in Indonesia and killed 71,000 people. The following year, 1816, became known as the Year Without a Summer. Crops failed across Europe and North America. Famine spread, livestock died, and Tambora was roughly 100 times smaller than Toba. Whatever devastation Tambora caused, multiply it by a factor that scientists still argue about, and you begin to approach what Toba did to the planet. Imagine Africa 74,000 years ago. Summer does not arrive. The rains that usually sweep across the savannas in predictable cycles stop coming, or come weaker. At the wrong time, flowers do not bloom. The grasslands that feed the antelope herds turn brown and thin. The antelope themselves grow weak and starve, their bones visible beneath thinning hides. The predators that depend on them, including your ancestors, suddenly face a world where the food chain is collapsing from the bottom up. Trees die. Rivers shrink to muddy threads. Water holes that sustained camps for generations dry to cracked earth. The sky stays a muted gray for month after month after month, and nobody alive understands why. That is the popular version of the story, and for decades, it shaped how scientists understood what happened next. In 1998, anthropologist Stanley Ambrose at the University of Illinois proposed what became known.
Could you imagine being the first nigga to like have to deal with this bullshit, bro? Like, you just yesterday you did your regular shit, you know what I'm saying? You took a shit behind a bush, you went pick some berries, all that good shit, you know what I'm saying? And then you wake up today, you look outside, the whole fucking world covered in goddamn ash and shit, nigga. Like, everything dried the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just you in the wasteland all of a sudden. Like, that shit would, man, hey, bro.
As the Toba catastrophe theory. He argued that the eruption caused a genetic bottleneck in the human population, reducing the entire species to fewer than 10,000 individuals, possibly fewer than 3,000 breeding pairs. The evidence came from modern human DNA, which shows remarkably low genetic diversity compared to other primates. Something at some point shrank the human population to almost nothing. Ambrose argued Toba was the cause. For years, this was the dominant story. The supervolcano that nearly killed everyone. The extinction we barely escaped. This decision to accept the bottleneck as fact seemed small at the time. It wasn't. Then archaeologists started digging. At Pinnacle Point, a rock shelter on the southern coast of South Africa, a team led by Curtis Marian of Arizona State University had been excavating for nearly 20 years. The site sits on a stretch of coastline where ancient humans lived between 90,000 and 50,000 years ago, one of the longest continuous records of human occupation anywhere on Earth. In 2018, they published a study in Nature that changed the Toba narrative. Panagiotis Karkanas, a geoarchaeologist working on sediment samples, spotted a single microscopic glass shard embedded in a slice of archaeological sediment encased in resin. It had a distinctive hook shape formed when volcanic glass fractures across a bubble. One shard out of millions of mineral particles. Chemical analysis confirmed it came from Toba, carried 9,000 kilometers through the atmosphere, from Indonesia to the tip of Africa. That shard was a timestamp accurate to within a single month across the entire globe, and the layers directly above and below it told a clear story. There was no gap in human occupation at Pinnacle Point, no abandonment, no die-off. The evidence of human activity didn't decrease after the eruption. It intensified. More stone tools, more food processing, more signs of sustained, organized life. The people at Pinnacle Point ate shellfish. They harvested mussels and limpets from the rocky coastline. And coastal marine resources, unlike inland plants and grazing animals, are far less vulnerable to volcanic winter. The ocean acts as a thermal buffer. Shellfish kept growing. The people kept eating. 9,000 kilometers away, at Jwalapuram, in the Jereru Valley of southern India, archaeologist Michael Petraglia found something equally striking. His team recovered over 15,000 stone tools from layers, both above and below the thick Toba ash deposit. The tool-making technologies on both sides of the ash were consistent. Same levalloy flaking techniques, same scraper industries, same core reduction strategies, no interruption, no technological collapse. Whoever lived there before the eruption was still living there after it, making the same tools, occupying the same river valley, adapting to a landscape now blanketed in volcanic debris. The Toba catastrophe theory began to fracture, not because the eruption wasn't devastating, it was, but because humans turned out to be more resilient, more behaviorally flexible, and more widespread than anyone had assumed. In Ethiopia, populations shifted their behavior entirely. They abandoned inland hunting grounds, where large game had collapsed, and moved towards seasonal rivers and shallow water holes. They started fishing, a food source most of these groups had never relied on before. They adopted new weapons, including early forms of the bow and arrow, allowing them to hunt smaller, faster game that still survived in the scrublands. These weren't random changes. They were calculated responses to a world that had fundamentally altered its rules overnight. In South Africa, groups diversified their diets, turning to marine resources, small game, tubers, and roots. They refined their stone tools, improving cutting efficiency with less raw material. At multiple sites, archaeologists found evidence of new tool technologies appearing in the layers directly above the Toba ash. Not a collapse, an acceleration. The eruption didn't freeze human culture. In some places, it pushed it forward. They didn't just endure the catastrophe, they innovated through it. But here's the detail that everyone missed for decades. The volcanic winter may not have been the worst part. In 2021, a team led by Sergei Osipov at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, using NASA's GISS climate model, discovered something that had been entirely overlooked. The billions of tons of sulfur dioxide that Toba injected into the stratosphere didn't just block sunlight and cool the planet. The volcanic plume absorbed the ultraviolet radiation needed to form ozone from oxygen. Without that UV-driven chemical reaction, the ozone layer collapsed. Global ozone levels dropped by as much
So it is the ozone layer. Okay, see, I do know ball. Y'all niggas pay attention, bro.
as 50%. In the tropics, where your ancestors in Africa lived, the UV index doubled. Under normal conditions, the UV index near the equator sits around 12, already classified as extreme by the World Health Organization. After Toba, it spiked to 28. Going outside without protection would cause sunburn and eye damage in under 15 minutes. Over months and years, accumulated UV exposure would cause skin cancers, genetic damage to DNA, and reproductive failure. Marine plankton near the surface would die. The base of the ocean food chain would weaken. Crop yields and marine productivity would drop. As UV radiation sterilized surface ecosystems, the researchers compared the conditions to the aftermath of a nuclear war. If Toba's volcanic winter was the fist, the ozone collapse was the knife. Cold kills fast, UV kills slow, and the people who survived had no idea. The sky itself had turned against them. So who survived and why? The answer comes down to behavior, not strength, not luck. Behavior. The humans who made it through Toba were the ones who changed what they ate, where they lived, and how they hunted. Coastal populations had access to marine food sources that the volcanic winter couldn't easily destroy. Shellfish grow in cold water. Kelp forests survive reduced sunlight. The ocean, with its massive thermal inertia, kept coastal ecosystems functional while inland ones collapsed. Inland populations migrated, tracked water, and switched to new prey. Groups that had already developed flexible tool technologies adapted faster than those locked into a single hunting strategy. The species didn't survive because of a genetic advantage. It survived because individuals made decisions under pressure. They observed what was failing, and they tried something else. They walked toward the coast when the interior dried up. They picked up a fishing line when the antelope disappeared. They taught their children the new way, not the old one. Every person alive today carries the genetic legacy of that flexibility. The low diversity in human DNA isn't just a scar from near extinction. It is proof that a very small number of people made the right choices under the worst conditions the planet had ever thrown at them. 8 billion people alive today, all of them traceable genetically to a population so small it could have fit inside a single modern sports stadium. Now look outside your window again. The sunlight is there because the ozone layer rebuilt itself over thousands of years after Toba's sulfur cloud dissipated. The trees are there because forests eventually reclaimed the ash-covered ground. The sky is blue because the stratosphere cleared. Everything you see out that window is the slow recovery from a catastrophe your ancestors walked through barefoot, with stone tools and an empty stomach. They didn't know the ozone was gone. They didn't understand why the sun burned hotter or why the cold wouldn't break. They just kept moving, kept adapting, kept refusing to disappear. You are the direct result of that refusal. The next time you walk outside without thinking, into clean air and visible sunlight, remember that 74,000 years ago, that simple act would have been the most dangerous thing a human could do, and
That's
understand,
tough as fuck.
maybe for the first time, how extraordinary it is that there is anyone left to do it.
That's wild. Niggas was really walking outside and getting they shit deep fried, bruh. And didn't know from what. That's tough. Hey, bruh. Y'all niggas stay safe. I'm gonna get the fuck on. I'm gonna fuck with y'all niggas. Yeah, boy.